everybody. Thank you for listening to the Goodness Village podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of sitting down with one of our neighbors, Johnny. Johnny, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing good.
Dude, thanks for hanging out, man. How's the day been going?
It's good. I have my back sore.
Ugh,
So I should be at work, but I called out because I didn't want to injure myself further.
oh yeah, gotta take care of yourself, man.
Yeah.
So Johnny was one of our for folks listening at home. Johnny, you were one of the first neighbors to move into here, into the village, over 2 years ago.
Yeah. Number 26 of
Number
the original 28.
The OG 28, you're number 26. I love that you know that number, man. That's really cool. So you've been part of the village since the early days. How's it been? How do you like living here?
It's great. It's a great place to live. Um, I get everybody gets along, and staff is a blessing to have here. But overall, I'd say it's good. It's pleasant.
We like to think so. I'm glad that you think
Yeah.
so too, man. Yeah, no, it's always fun here. It's dynamic as all heck. You have been a big part of this community, whether you know it or acknowledge it or not. And I think a big way that you've been a big part of this community is really being part of everything that Goodness Village has to offer, including our vocational program. Do you want to kind of share a little bit what your time or how your experience has been working, quote unquote, with Goodness Village?
When I first participated in it, it was a lot different than it is now. There wasn't a vocational manager. You would everybody that's on staff kind of did what the now vocational manager does. So early on, you could just wake up in the morning, or I just wake up in the morning, decide to pull some weeds, go in, talk to whoever's there, and sign off on my hours and get my hours for the month. But then it slowly transitioned into where they had Terry taking over as vocational manager, and it gave much needed structure to it. It's more like a job. Um, she's your boss. She's not your boss, but she's kind of like a fill in for a boss. Tells you that the XYZ needs to be done.
Yeah, she runs the show. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the vocational program, if you can share a little bit, it's kind of you work in exchange for what your program fees are, or how does that work?
So it's I don't remember the exact dollar amount, but it's either $15 or $16 per hour you work, and you're given a allotment of hours you can work each month. So I think 25 hours is the base if you're doing vocational, and to pay for your program fee, you have to do 25 hours a month.
You only
Um,
have to work 25 hours a month to kinda cover what your quote unquote "rent" is here in
yeah,
the
I mean,
village?
have to is kind of weird. Like, you have the option to either do that or pay um, cash or whatever.
Right, to cover your fees.
Yep.
So when you first moved in the village, you shared before we hit record, you're working at Target
Yeah.
and then transition out of that to work in the village, and now you're no longer part of the vocational program because you got a full-time job somewhere else.
Yes, and that's because that was also my current employment as a result of the vocational program. I wouldn't had it not been for the facilitation of Goodness Village, I wouldn't have gotten the job that I have now.
Really?
Yeah, because I never would have thought of apparel branding as a, a form of employment. So I make T-shirts. I never would have thought of that as a avenue of work, and it was somebody reached out to Terry, and Terry reached out to me, and then she kind of facilitated the pre-employment process there at where I work now.
Wow, that's awesome. That's
Yeah,
kind of the whole vision. That's what we're hoping for, with, with our vocational program. It's really getting folks, ready or more comfortable with a 9 to 5 or a work schedule. And there's so much stuff to do around the village, landscaping or maintenance or this or that, which is a really, from my understanding, a good way to ease into kind of a work-life balance. There's the accountability, the clocking in or writing out your hours and making sure your duties are done to
yeah,
kind of cover, and basically to get paid that goes into the vocational program to get paid to pay for your program fees,
yeah.
uh, which I think is awesome. And all the vocational opportunities here at Goodness Village seem to be all taking care of the community, right?
Yeah, and there's different tiers too to it. I don't know. Are you familiar with the tier system of it?
I'm not. Can you elaborate
So
or
t
share a little
so
bit?
everybody's I'm not, like, can't really quote me on it, but, like, everybody moving in is tier 1, which is standard vocational jobs. The weeding, the chicken team, um, trash team, whatever team there is. Tier 1, tier 2 goes into stipend work where you can receive gift cards, based on what you're doing. Like with me, the coffee barista program I do every week is part of that tier 2 stipend job, and then tier 3 is, I believe, somebody who has employment.
Gotcha. So you've really been through all the different tiers, right?
Well, there's 3 that I know of. I don't know if there's anything above 3 tiers, but
Well, the tier 4 is a secret tier, and you gotta no,
oh,
I'm just kidding,
yeah.
I'm just kidding. You mentioned part of the coffee team.
Yeah.
Um, you've been part of the coffee team since there was a coffee team just about, right?
Yeah, when I first moved in back in September of 2021,
Yeah,
there was a coffee team, and it was a lot different than it is now because we were actually operating the espresso maker there at Crosswinds. We had, like, 2 or 3 papers of recipes.
yeah, I
Jackie and
remember that.
Jade were part of the coffee team and going through how to make cappuccinos and, Americanos and all these different types of coffee, whereas now it's much more simple, 2 drinks, hot brew coffee and cold brew coffee.
You make it sound like it's just 2 drinks, but I've had this coffee. That hot coffee is fantastic, but my favorite is the cold brew. We make that in-house, right?
Yeah.
You're kind of in charge of that.
Uh, sort of, sort of, I always think of you as being the one in charge of it. Because
Well,
you're the one that reached out to, Story Coffee, who's the people that came to teach us how to do everything.
yeah, shout out to Story Coffee, great coffee.
Yeah.
2nd best coffee here in the Tri-Valley after the Goodness
Hmm.
Cafe. Uh, the Goodness Cafe or the coffee vocational program, that's here at, Crosswinds Church on Sundays, right?
Right.
Very cool. So if anybody goes to Crosswinds or wants the best coffee in the Tri-Valley,
Hmm.
come by Crosswinds Church from, what is it, Sundays,
9 to 11,
9 to 11.
and typically, we have it ready around 8:30 if you'd like to show up early.
Nice.
But the official time is 9 to 11.
9 to 11. Well, very exclusive hours for very exclusive coffee.
Yep, best price too. Not only is it the best coffee, but it's the best price.
That is true. Well, that's
Well,
because we get to partner with Crosswinds, and they help out with, they Crosswinds has been a huge influence with Goodness Village across the board. Um, so shout out Crosswinds.
yeah,
A lot of shout outs in this episode. I like it.
uh,
One day we'll have a bunch of sponsors that we'll read out. It'll be awesome.
well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot, so not only is Goodness Village, like, responsible for everything here, there's a lot of outside influences, like you said, with Crosswinds and all this other stuff,
Yeah,
so,
I mean, literally, the village could not exist without all the partners and folks that helped us build this place,
yeah.
which is really cool. Talking about Crosswinds, you used to work at Crosswinds too, right? Part of the vocational program, or
Yeah,
what was that like?
briefly, no, that was separate,
Okay. Oh, that's just a job.
yeah, so
Great.
my case manager, I met with her, and she said that Crosswinds at the time, they were looking for somebody to help with janitorial services and, landscaping stuff, and I applied, and not knowing how to do any of it, I have no expe I had minor exposure to janitorial stuff, no exposure to landscaping, and the previous facilities manager for Crosswinds taught me everything to do, and, I think I worked there probably 6 to 8 months doing janitorial services, um, helping with events, landscaping, which didn't last very long 'cause it's a lot of hard work around here to get everything clean and pretty and
Yeah.
look.
Well, we got the church has 30 something acres to take care of.
Yeah,
That's a tall order, that's for sure.
yeah, but, yeah, I worked for Crosswinds.
Very cool. So you've seen it all when it comes to the vocational side of things over here.
Yeah.
Uh, Besides all the awesome work that you've done for Goodness Village and Crosswinds, and now out and about in the Tri Valley in the apparel universe, um, your experience at Goodness Village. How has it been getting to know our neighbors, our staff, our volunteers? Like, what are things that you've been enjoying in the village?
It's a really good thing, and, it's there's a lot of resources available that aren't available in other places like this. Um, so the staff is great, especially with it being 24 hours. I could have some crisis at 2 a.m. in the morning and go in, and there's somebody there that can help me. You know, um, uh, volunteers. I've never one thing I've never done in vocational is work with the volunteers that come on the property, do projects like when they built the chicken coop. They just sanded down all the tables. I think that was 2 weeks ago or something, where
Yeah.
they cleaned all the tables, putting up the book barn things around the
Oh, the
village.
the little libraries.
Yeah,
Yeah.
building the garden, so, I mean, I've seen them, and I appreciate everything the volunteers have built and contributed in that way, um, but, I never well, 'cause I've been busy,
You're
so
working.
I
You
can't.
you can't be everywhere all at once.
Yeah. The murals was another thing when they painted the mural on the green trailer here, and the mural as you're pulling into the yellow house on the 2 units right there. That was another volunteer opportunity to work with volunteers, and, I regret that I wasn't a part of it because 'cause I'd love to learn how to paint.
Well, I'm sure there'll be plenty of, more opportunities coming up to hang out with volunteers
Yeah.
and work with them. I mean, even we're, in the process of getting all the permits and things done for the community center that we are building here on the site. And that thing's gonna need to be painted
Hmm,
and all the things. So we're really excited for that to get going and actually see, us build something, with staff, with volunteers, with neighbors.
yeah.
Really that big capital C community approach to the village, which is cool to see. I mean, we're only 2 years in and seeing where you and where other neighbors were 2 years ago before moving in to where I'll just talk about you, where you were 2 years ago to where you are now. I mean, I've seen night and day. How do you feel?
I feel a lot better than, just in terms of health.
Mm,
I have anxiety and depression issues, or I had them moving in here, and I've been living with that for a long time, since adolescence, maybe even longer. And there's just something about all the things here, like I don't have to deal with anxiety. So I had a doctor's appointment last month, and we both decided that I didn't need to take my anxiety medicine anymore because I'm not living with that constant anxiety, and that I attribute to the fact that you know there's not a 6 month or 1 year time frame. You move in somewhere, they tell you have 6 months. You need to figure out what you're going to do and get out of here basically in 6 months. There's a time to relax and actually work on things without the pressure of a deadline, which has been beneficial for me.
yeah.
Does that answer your question?
No, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing. That's big. That's something that we don't think about. The the stress, anxiety, and depression that comes along with being unsheltered, but even being a part of other programs where there is that deadline.
Yeah.
Um, those programs are great. I'm not trying to
No, no,
bag
neither
on
am
any of
I.
those. It is stressful when you have 6 months in at a hotel or at a different shelter. But what are you going to do in 6 months in one day?
Yeah.
Which is a big tenant of Goodness Village, kind of taking that pressure, that anxiety out of the equation for folks, for Johnny, for our neighbors to really figure out like what the next steps are besides just getting by.
And then you have the case management too, which
Mm,
it's not as strict as as a deadline or time frame, but they provide that structure to your helping you set goals and basically rehabilitating you to like a sustainable citizen, basically, like where you can increase your income, get connected with resources you need for well-being and stuff. So that's another aspect of the staff that's great.
yeah, and I think it's cool what we get to do here because we were small, because we have 28 neighbors, we have 28 different plans for all of our neighbors. Not 28 for each neighbor, but we have 28 plans designed for each neighbor and what they need and what their next steps are. So what Johnny's next steps are is going to be different than what Daryl's next steps are, or
Yeah,
whoever's. Um, so there's not a funnel, there's not a system that we push everyone through. We really say, hey, where's Johnny at now, and where does he want to go?
right.
Uh, and dude, you've been thriving, man. I'm not gonna lie. Seeing where you were 2 years ago to where you are now, it's been really cool and encouraging to see you kind of step up to what your next steps are and really just conquer them. And there's steps forward, steps back. I totally understand that process, but just saying we're proud of you, Johnny.
Yeah.
You kick
Well,
butt, you take names. It's always good to hang out with you. uh, well, Johnny, I won't take too much of your time. Thanks for
well,
hanging out. Thanks for chatting on the Goodness Village podcast. We end these podcasts the same way that we end staff meetings, and it's silly, but it totally works. Big old alligator clap. So just stick your arms out. I'll count 3, 2, 1, and we'll clap together. You ready?
yeah, I'm ready.
3, 2, 1. Thanks for listening to the Goodness Village podcast. Production and recording done by our operations team here at the Village. Music was created by Club 88 member AJ Parr. If you want to know more about Club 88, this podcast, or Goodness Village, visit our website at gvlivermore.org. Don't forget, new episodes drop on Fridays. And thanks again for listening to The Good Pod.